the comics, for the most part, even back then, were pretty supportive, and it was a good scene. But I would say now, I mean, it is so much better than it was even in the 90s. And I mean, I give a lot of credit to the younger generation of comics, because they're great at setting up the, do-it-yourself shows, getting gigs in venues that, I wouldn't have even thought of, like in the 80s and 90s.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to Top Fives with Don SILL. I'm your host, Don SILL, and we got another great show in store for you today. It's a top 5 Denver comedians of all time. Denver Broncos, Denver Nuggets, John Denver. Yeah, Denver. Joining me today is Denver's own hippie man himself, John Novosad.
Thank you very much. A lot of people ask me if I'm a real hippie, and I was raised by hippies. My mom sent me to school every day with the Jimi Hendrix lunchbox, and all the kids made fun of me till they tried one of my brownies.
John's been working the Denver scene since the 1980s, and he knows what it's like to get a Rocky Mountain high. He's the hippie man. And as always, everybody, please remember to subscribe, like, and comment. We want to know your top 5 Denver comedians as well. And without further ado, let's get right into this. Me and John Novosad with the top 5 Denver comedians of all time. All right, everybody, we're here with John Novosad, a.k.a. the hippie man himself, ladies and gentlemen, a Denver local legend over there and a hilarious comedian. Everyone, if you get a chance, watch his stuff. It's on YouTube, and you can see a lot of his material.
And here's the thing that I've learned from watching these debates is that they never really want to talk about the national debt too much, And here's the standard answer that every one of them says is, I don't want to see our grandchildren pay off the national debt. And I'm like, I do. You know what I mean? Like, that is the only plan that has made sense so far. I'm like, let's get these kids to work, man. By the time they're my age, we'll be back at fucking zero, It's like...
But yeah, you've been doing comedy for a long time, right?
Yeah, Don, I have. I think the first time I ever got on stage was 1980, if you can believe that. And then I started working the road like 85, and I worked really hard, like 35, 40 weeks a year from 85 to 93. And the kind of work I was doing was just burning me out. It was a lot of one-nighters and weekends and stuff.
Right.
So I took a little break, was working temp jobs and stuff. But yeah, I've been doing it a long time. And then I've been full-time again for since about 2003, I guess, 2002.
Now, being on the scene for that many years, like from the 80s to now, that's what, like 40-something years. How have you seen the scene evolve, and has it gotten better, or what would you say the scene has become now?
Well, I would say it was always pretty good. The scene was always, the comics, for the most part, even back then, were pretty supportive, and it was a good scene. But I would say now, I mean, it is so much better than it was even in the 90s. And I mean, I give a lot of credit to the younger generation of comics, because they're great at setting up the, do-it-yourself shows, getting gigs in venues that, I wouldn't have even thought of, like in the 80s and 90s. So I think it's much better now.
Colorado's comedy scene is booming right now. Denver's Comedy Works, widely regarded as one of the best comedy clubs in America.
Right on it. And like through the years, as a comedy fan, when you think of comedy scenes, you think of New York or Boston or LA. Denver doesn't pop out, but now lately it's been in the conversation. So I think that's saying a lot for how the scene's really coming through.
Yeah, I think so too, and I mean, one of the things that was really amazing to me was how fast this scene bounced back. I hate to use the words after the pandemic, because we're still the pandemic, yeah. But once things started to kind of open up again, the scene just really bounced back. And I mean, I'm not talking about the mainstream rooms, although they were coming back too, but just like I say, all these little indie rooms and stuff, there's I can't, as a professional full-time stand-up comic, I can't make a living just in Denver, but I can get a boatload of stage time and supplement my income And it really came back fast once things started to open up again.
I go for a lot of walks, and I'm trying to get 10,000 steps a day, and I bought one of those pedometers that you clip on your belt, but then I lost it, And so I was like trying to keep track in my head. And that shit was freaking me out, man. I'm like...
What would you say separates the Denver scene from the others? What makes it unique?
I really think that it's the camaraderie. It is a pretty supportive scene. I mean, any scene, whether it's music, comedy, acting, or whatever, is going to have people that get snippy and bitchy and stuff. But I mean, I really think that's a big part of it. People pretty much pull for themselves, and they're very, giving. Like if I'm getting ready to record an album after Thanksgiving, and man, I mean, I've reached out to people, and they're just like, whatever we can do to help you, get stage time and stuff. And I think it's like that pretty much across the board. I mean, I think that, if you were brand new and you wanted to start off in Denver, obviously you're not going to be getting on showcases right off the bat, but there's so many mics and those kind of shows that without even knowing anybody, if you just figure out where they are, you'll be able to get on like 4 or 5 nights a week. So a long answer is, it's a friendly scene, and there's a lot of stage time.
Very cool. And there's so many great comedians coming out of Denver and Colorado and that whole area there. And you'll definitely have a better understanding of the who's who in the Denver scene than myself. So I'm looking forward to learning about some new comics with you as we go through this list. So this is going to be like the top 5 Denver comedians of all time. So you can go back as far as you want, as recent as you want. But I'm definitely looking forward to doing this because, like I said, the Denver scene's popping, and I'm just looking forward to doing this with you, man. And again, people should know that you are like a local legend, and you've and you've been doing this for a long time, and you've seen a lot. So good stuff. So who do you got? We'll get started now. Who do you got for number 5?
For number 5. Well, we're talking all time, right?
Yeah.
We're talking all time. All right. I mean, I got a list here. I want to look. I would put I'd put Adam Cayton-Holland at number 5. He's a pretty popular comic now, kind of an indie comic, but he's had some real success. He has a show called The Growlix with 2 other comics from Denver, Ben Roy and Andrew Overdahl. And then they parlayed that into a show on True TV called Those Who Can't, which was a sitcom where they all played high school teachers.
I played Lauren Payton, the school's Spanish teacher and resident cool guy.
So who wants a virgin, barely alcoholic margarita? Who's in? Everybody? Yes, that's what I'm talking about, guys. We're having fun and we're learning.
He's a great pick, very funny guy. I think Esquire named him like one of the top 25 comedians to watch. He's definitely on the rise, and he's exactly the types of comics I'm talking about that's really putting Denver on this resurgence map of comedy.
I don't like when you have a beard and you go in to get a haircut. Nobody knows what to do with the distribution of hair around the head. So I always wind up getting these hatchet jobs that I have right now. I feel like I look like a soldier who's just starting to question the war.
I think he's been on Conan. He's been on the Pete Holmes show. So he's made the rounds and done quite a bit. So hilarious guy, man. And you get to work with him a lot? You know him?
Yeah, quite a bit. I mean, and he does, he's the founder of a festival in Denver called High Plains Comedy Festival, which just happened, less than a month ago.
Denver's own High Plains Comedy Festival, which takes place down on South Broadway. It's my favorite weekend of the year, and it's basically comedy Christmas.
And, it's a really big festival. And I mean, they bring in all kinds of A-listers, but one of the things that Adam and the executive director isn't a comic, it's this woman named Karen Wachell, who's really great. But what they do is reach out to a lot of local comics and put them in the festival. And I get in every year.
Just at a bus stop at 8 o'clock at night, it's dark, but it's like whatever. And I show up at this bus stop. There's a woman there. She sees me, and she comes up to me all concerned, and she's like, "Are you all right? Do you have somewhere to go?" I know. And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm at a fucking bus stop, you know,
You know, I did a show. And again, these are like, I mean, the big shows at the Paramount Theater, and they bring in some really big acts for that. But there's all these little clubs, rock clubs and stuff along Broadway in Denver, and they use like 3 or 4 of those. And so I did a show at this place called Mutiny Information Cafe. And I mean, it was, you know, it was a great show. And it's a really good hang. It's a great festival. It's one of my favorite festivals, so.
Around these here parts, there's a great bumper sticker. Y'all probably seen it. It says, "If God's not a Broncos fan, why are sunsets orange and blue?" First of all, I don't know if you guys saw last season. God's definitely not a Broncos fan.
All right, so great number 5, Adam Cayton-Holland. So for me, my number 5 is a guy that I believe you would know, probably know him well. I got to interview him once, and he's the author of the book Running the Light, and he's the very talented Sam Tallent. So I love Sam Tallent. I feel like he kind of embodies the Denver scene in a way and represents it well. You know, from everything from his stage presence, his persona to his comedy. I mean, the guy even like has a mushroom farm. He just kind of has all the boxes checked. I would think for people like me who aren't familiar with Denver, what we perceive Denver. You know, I think Sam just kind of fits that mold perfectly, and I think he's a rising star for sure.
No one knows what I do. What the fuck? Don't talk to me that way.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely have Sam on my list too. And I'll tell you, I have him number 4. But Sam is amazing. I mean, he is the closest thing that I've ever seen to stream of consciousness. You know, there's some guys who are really good at ad-libbing, you know, but Sam makes stuff just, I mean, for, you know, every comic or any good comic can pull something out of the air and make it work. But I've seen Sam where, I mean, I know he does some material, but I've seen him in like a 45-minute set where you're like, this is like 30 minutes of ad-lib, you know?
You live in the country, yeah. So you can just drink and drive all you want out there. Sober, motherfucker. Does this t-shirt say pussy? No. It says pussy hound, all right?
It's amazing. And yeah, and I remember I messaged him probably 4 or 5 years ago and said, dude, what you're doing is amazing.
And I walked in on her having a moment alone, you know? Eyes closed. She was tending her secret garden. Yeah, she looked like Stevie Wonder doing a bass solo. Just...
Because, you know, there's a couple of different pathways now besides the internet. But I mean, there's the club circuit, but now there's all these indie shows. And Sam was doing that and sleeping on couches and just doing whatever he could to get across the country. And he did that forever. And I mean, he's still doing it. He's, you know, a bigger name now and getting nicer venues and stuff. But I messaged him and said, dude, I see what you're doing. And that's really amazing because that takes a lot, you know?
Do you have a gun? If you have a gun, can you shoot it into the air after this last joke? Do you have it on you? You do have it on you. Jesus Christ. All right. Can I see it? Let me hold a gun for this last bit. You guys down? Yeah! Give me the gun! 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 Don't give me the gun! Can you think about it? You considered giving me a firearm? I knew you were fucking cool, all right?
And I remember where this had to be, God, 10 years ago, Sam featured for me. And even back then, I was like, damn, I better, you know, be on my best behavior here because this guy is a killer. So
that's cool. Excellent, man. So, so Sam Tallent. And so if you're number 4, it's also, you have Sam Tallent?
Yeah, I have Sam Tallent as my number 4.
Cool. So what happens when we agree, that person will automatically go to our final 5 for sure. And
okay.
So I feel like, you know, if there's anything else you want to add about Sam Tallent?
The only thing I would say is, you know, and I'd say this about Adam and the Growlers guy, is they show you a way to do stuff that isn't necessarily the standard way. I mean, Sam wrote that book, and I'm sure he sent it to a bunch of publishers, but he finally just decided to self-publish it. And I don't know how many copies he sold, but a lot, you know, and he got on WTF with Mark Maron.
Yeah.
And a big part of that was that book and self-publishing and stuff. So it's, you know, I just wanted to add that. It's great to see that in my home scene because it gives me, not that I want to write a book, but it gives me hope that, you know, for an old dude like me, where they're all looking for, you know, 25 to 30-year-olds or whatever it is, there's still hope for me to carve out my own niche, you know?
And I do. I travel all over the country. You know, I have a lot of time to kill during the days, so I like to make my own fun. Like, I'll go to job interviews I'm not qualified for, just looking like this, you know? Yeah, kills a little time, you know?
All right, so moving for my number 4, I have Kristen Schaal. So Kristen Schaal, yeah, she's from Longmont, Colorado. She has a quirky style and material and just a way about her, everything from her voice and you know, and that voice has been her money maker, kind of. She's done some cartoons with Bob's Burgers and things like that, but she's also was on the Flight of the Conchords, and has a real decent career. And I just think she's hilarious when you watch her stand up, and her timing and just her sensibility on stage is just really good.
Ugh. Now, my baby was born a twin set, so I had to eat the other one. Naturally. Now, that joke is special because that is specifically for any panda bears that are in the audience tonight.
Wow. You know, I didn't even think about her in the Denver top 5, but man, I mean, I'm a huge fan. And I remembered that she came from Longmont. And I do think, you know, I mean, I'd be hard pressed not to put her in the top 5. Now that you mentioned it, she's really great. I've never gotten a chance to see her live or meet her or work with her. But yeah, I mean, she's great. And she does have a real quirky voice.
If I ever become a food critic, which is very easy for me to do because I'm eating food like every day, I think I'm qualified. I already know what my first review would be if I didn't like it. It would say, the Gorgonzola burger at Chez Louis, Kristen Schaal says, I couldn't poop it out fast enough.
And again, you know, when you see someone like that, I mean, Longmont, I live in Boulder. Longmont's like 15 or 20 minutes away. So it's cool to think that for whatever reason that she came from Longmont, that, you know, produced her. And that's a great choice.
I don't know. She's got a squealy voice and bad teeth and she keeps bumping into things. Well, I think she's kind of funny. Yeah, that's subjective, okay?
All right, so here we are, number 3 already. Who do you got for number 3?
Number 3, I've got Ben Kronberg. You know,
nice.
Ben is, I guess I would call him an independent comic, an indie comic, but he's had some good television. He did Late Night with Seth Meyers, and I think he did way back in the day. What was that game? Wipeout. I think he did.
Oh, really?
Yeah, when John Henson hosted it.
Oh, if White Castle
was a real castle, imagine it, White Castle's a real castle. I bet the moat would be made out of diarrhea.
And Ben is one of those guys, and the reason I put him in the top 5 is because he is unique, man. And I mean, he's fearless. I've seen him go on stage, just determined to do, a real quirky bit where I think he even knew in the back of his mind that it wasn't going to get huge laughs, but he just goes up and does it. And that's another thing, that when I look at this top 5 list, I mean, part of the reason I choose people like that is they're inspirational to me, because it's so easy as a comic to just go, well, I'm not going to deviate. This set list is working. And man, I see a guy like Ben, and he's just like, it doesn't matter if it's a really big show or whatever. He doesn't throw it out the window, but he goes up there specifically with this thing that, is a big risk, and he takes it. So
when you abort a Cabbage Patch Baby, it's called making coleslaw.
Yeah, I mean, you got to think that comedians like Ben, to take risks on stage, that's in a way that's what separates the great ones from the rest, right? Is to be able to take those risks and challenges.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and lots of times those risks don't necessarily pan out right then.
All right, 120 BPM, guys. Can you fucking handle it? Do you even know what 120 BPM is like? Have you even experienced it? Or are you just in fucking Guitar Center strumming your fucking acoustic?
I look at it this way. If I take the risk and it doesn't get a big laugh, I still give myself credit for taking a risk, because the worst thing I can be on stage is indecisive, like, should I do that bit or not? Just, you got to go for it. And not let the chips fall where they may, but, evaluate how it did and then maybe make some changes, or maybe it worked great. But yeah, taking the risk is a big part of comedy for sure.
I saw a guy in a smart car the other day not wearing a seatbelt. Talk about a Darwin-win situation.
All right, so now my number 3 is a guy who's again, he's got a great demeanor. He's funny on stage. He's been on TV and in the movies now. And this is a Denver's own TJ Miller.
Oh man, that's another one I didn't even think of.
TJ Miller, yeah, he's from Denver, and a lot of these. So sometimes I don't know if they came up through the Denver circuit, like the comedy scene, or not. But because he's born and raised there. Made his acting debut in movies like Cloverfield and stuff like that. But he's a hilarious comedian, and he's got a unique vibe and way about him. To me, it's kind of similar in a way, not in material, but I think his presence sometimes reminds me similar of like a Sam Tallent, where just his vibe on stage, he just kind of radiates a certain aura. And I think TJ Miller is definitely up there, and now I think he's had some controversies here and there with some stuff, but tried canceling him or whatever. But I think when you look at his characters in Deadpool and The Office Christmas Party and some of the movies he's done, he's got a great voice for cartoons, similar to Kristen Schaal. So yeah, I think because of that, I have TJ at the number 3 spot.
So I've been traveling lately. I do something now to make myself laugh. I have a rider now, which is what I require or I won't perform. And so I have regular things on my rider, and then I put in 2 things that just make me laugh. I require I will not perform a microphone stand, a stool, bottled water if it's available, and I also require a terrible turkey sandwich, and then in parentheses next to that it says open to interpretation.
I mean, it's hard not to put him in the top 5 when you consider, if you just look at his career and the success that he's had in his career, it's definitely, a top 3 pick. And, you know, it's funny because, and I don't know this for a fact, but I think until TJ headlined the Comedy Works, I don't think he was on that stage very often. I mean, I had some gaps there, like I say, where I was working a day job pretty hard and not going down to the club as much. But I don't remember seeing TJ around the Denver scene much at all before he really hit it.
Quickly, he's losing blood. I don't know what to do. The phone's busy. Well, you better do something. Okay.
And when TJ does come back, like you said, now that he's famous and comes to the Comedy Works as a headliner and all that, does he represent Denver? Is he proud? Like, is he a proud Denver native? Does he talk about it?
Yeah, he does. And this was maybe like 5 years ago, but he made a music video, and I think he called it "I Love Denver." And he used, you know, a whole bunch of Denver scenes and Denver comics in it. I was an extra in it for a little while. So I think he does, you know, still talk nice about Denver and, you know, is good about it.
Denver, Denver, I'm from Denver, 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 I'm from Denver.
Cool. Excellent. All right, moving along. We are at number 2, John.
Number 2, you know, I got to put Josh Blue at number 2. You know,
love Josh Blue.
Yeah, he's a friend of mine. I just actually feature for him like 3 or 4 times a year. And I just featured for him in Springfield, Missouri, last weekend it was, or the weekend after, I guess, the weekend before, at the Blue Room there. And, you know, Josh, he's a powerhouse. I mean, he's a friend for sure. He's a really good friend of mine.
But I'm just glad that I'm able to laugh at myself, because if I wasn't able to laugh at myself, well, I'd have shot someone by now.
But I remember in 2006, I did the Boston Comedy Festival, which is a competition, and Josh got in also. So we were both in Boston at the same time. But then he got a Mind of Mencia, you know, an appearance on that show.
Oh yeah,
on Comedy Central. And so he never even did, you know, the competition, but he was there the first night. And I can't remember the name of the venue that I did my first round in, but it was in the basement of this little comedy club on a Wednesday night in Boston at like 9:30. It was like a Friday second show, you know? And I looked around this room and there was scattered crowd. It wasn't super busy. And for whatever reason in my head, I was married to this set that I was going to do, this 6-minute set.
Right.
And I mean, it was a festival, it was a competition. I could have done whatever the hell I want. But in my mind, I'm like, I'm going to do this set. And so I went up and I mean, it was a struggle and nobody had a great set. And I didn't advance. So then I learned a valuable lesson then, man. I was like, damn, now I'm on vacation in Boston, you know, for 2 days instead of advancing in it. So I learned a lot. But when I got back to Denver and Josh was back in Denver, and this was before he was really, you know, pop big, but we went out to lunch and he goes, hey, can I say something to you about Boston? I was like, you could say whatever you want, Josh, you know, we're friends. And he goes, man, you were over-prepared for that set. He goes, if you just would have gone up and treated that like a Friday second show and do what you did, you would have advanced. And I told him then, I go, dude, you're wise beyond your comedy years, you know? And he was right. If I just would have relaxed, instead of thinking, oh my God, I'm in the Boston Comedy Festival, I've got to nail the set, I would have advanced because, you know, there was like 8 or 10 of us, and I don't even remember the names of the people, but that were you know, competing with. But I mean, nobody had a great set. And if I just would have done what I normally do, I think I would have advanced. So that guy, Josh, he's a good comic. He's smart, and he thinks things through.
I mean, really, why can't Spider-Man have terrible balls? Stop!
Josh Blue, what I love about him, and whenever I talk about Josh Blue, and like he was just, you know, recently was on the America's Got Talent, and he went deep. He almost won the whole thing.
Yeah, I think he took third.
And I always said to people, like when it comes to Josh Blue, and I got to see him live a few times and meet him a few times as well, but he's more than the cerebral palsy. Like a lot of times, like with those kind of shows, you kind of need the backstory. But I always said he's more than that. He has the heart of a comedian. He's a true comic through and through, and it's in his material and in his style and the way he goes through life. And he's awesome. And this is a guy that won Last Comic Standing, almost won America's Got Talent. He's a hilarious comedian on every level. And I just love the guy. And he's also was, oddly enough, my number 2 as well.
People ask me what I want to be when I grow up. I was like, I want to be a dad. Not sure about the husband part, but
Yeah, so he's an awesome comedian, and I just think the world of him.
Yeah, I just wanted to echo what you said. I mean, he's a great comic. He's a good comedian, and yes, he has cerebral palsy, and yes, he does jokes about it, but his whole act isn't about that. And the thing that's amazing to me about Josh is he keeps track of that all in his head. He doesn't really write stuff down. I mean, obviously he records and maybe listens and stuff like that, but he doesn't have like a standard set list that he goes to. And that guy is prolific. I don't know how many specials or albums he's got, but he's got like maybe 5 out or something like that. And it's fun to watch him work. And again, inspirational, not from a standpoint of, that he has cerebral palsy. I mean, that's definitely inspirational, but I'm talking about inspirational as a working comic. To be like, damn, this guy always has something new. He's always turning material. So
that's neat. I guess it is true. When God takes something away, he gives something back.
He's the real deal. Whether he had the cerebral palsy or not, he would have been a comedian. Yeah, that's just who he is. It's in his soul.
That's a good way to put it, for sure.
Yeah, man. So cool. So we both agree on number 2.
Mm-hmm.
So now that we jump right to number 1. So who's your number 1 comedian of Denver?
All right. My number 1 is Roseanne.
Nice.
Roseanne Barr. I mean, I think technically she may have started in Salt Lake City, but she was, I mean, I did a bunch of shows with her back in the day. Like, I don't even know what year that was, but it was in the 80s for sure.
Yeah, if you started in 1980, you definitely seen her on the come up, because she came out around 84, 85. And,
yeah.
She's a housewife from Denver, Colorado, who started appearing at a local nightclub called the Comedy Works in Denver about 3 or 4 years ago. And she moved out here to Hollywood, where she's been working at the Comedy Store. And this is her very first appearance on national television. Would you welcome Roseanne Barr? Roseanne?
That's cool.
And I did shows with her in like Pueblo, Colorado, Steamboat Springs, which is a ski resort, and just all over Colorado. And then she was a regular at the Comedy Works, and I was a regular at the Comedy Works. So we did a bunch of shows there. And then I remember when she got the Tonight Show, and that was when Johnny Carson still had. That was when, a Tonight Show could really make a difference in your life. And it did in hers,
But it's good that I'm fat, though, because I'm a mom, and fat moms are better than skinny moms. Because what do you want when you're depressed? Some skinny mom? Well, why don't you jog around a while, and that'll release adrenaline in your blood, and you'll better cope with stress. Or some fat mom? Well, let's have pudding, Oreos, and marshmallows.
And then, she got the show, and then she had her troubles too, but I still, the way I put it is, it's like having success beyond your wildest expectations,
she's an amazing comedian. And it's pretty cool that you came up with her. What was she like back in those days? And do you still keep in touch with her now?
I haven't spoken to her in years and years and years, but, she was, to a lesser degree, but very similar to her character, that kind of sassy housewife, I guess. I don't know how to describe it, but was that.
Because I'm a housewife. word homemaker, too. I want to be called domestic goddess.
Now I remember she was like, she had a joke. She told her husband, "I'll vacuum the rug," when Sears comes out with a riding lawn or riding vacuum, you know.
Right. Yeah. Roseanne, she, obviously worked all over Denver and the Colorado scene back then, and her career, even though it's been controversial lately, whether it's bad renditions of the national anthem. Bad tweets.
God damn it! I thought the bitch was white!
She is an icon and a legend who paved the way for like the sitcom comedian in a way. Like, she created a character that on stage that came all the way back to the Comedy Works time in the 80s. That character cultivated and evolved into Roseanne television show that was the biggest show in the world for a long time. She's just an amazing and hilarious comedian. A lot of her comedy, even back then in the 80s, still holds up. If you watch some old Roseanne stuff, it's still funny. It stood the test of time because the housewife, will always be have that same point of view,
So do I seem bitchy to you at all? I feel bitchy, I'll tell you that. This was an awful morning. Like, I get up this morning, I put my maxi pad on, adhesive side up. Oh, come on, you've done it.
Yeah, and the other thing that I wanted to say, because a lot of people go, well, she had an attitude and, made all these demands and stuff. And I mean, I just think about at that time, and even now, but a woman who gets a sitcom, and then that sitcom becomes the biggest, like I say, success beyond your wildest expectations. I don't fault her at all for calling her own shot. I mean, maybe she was a little more gruff than she had to be or whatever, but I get it, man. I mean, there's so much stuff that you go through on the way up. And even when you get to that point, you got these network people all over you and shit.
Yeah, man.
I mean, I get it. I think I'd say more power to her for calling her shot,
Right
and
on.
doing that stuff.
Well, he says to me, "Hey, Roseanne, don't you think we should talk about our sexual problems? Like I'm going to turn off Wheel of Fortune for that." Put it on a gift certificate, babe.
Right on. Roseanne Barr, great pick for number one. And now my number one pick is, again, a Denver guy, obviously, and it's the tool man himself, Tim Allen. Yeah, he's, well known, obviously, for being Tim the Tool Man on that his television show. Yeah, he was he was Buzz Lightyear on Toy Story, but his comedy back then, and again, similar to Roseanne, how he created a this kind of character of this manly man, this I love tools, all that kind of stuff, and that he probably cultivated that throughout the comedy scene in Denver, and then worked that to the stage, and then from there to sitcom. So pretty much the same path like Roseanne took, and both usually successful.
It's lawn care season. It's a battle. I brought out the heavy artillery. I got the John Deere tractor, the 160 series. That's 11-horse twin center hydrostatic drive. 42-inch blade rear bagger with a tiller. It's got headlights on in case I want to mow it at night. Great.
I've never seen him live or worked with him either, although years ago I was coming back from a mountain gig, riding with another comic, and he was like, "Hey, we're going to pick up another comic and give him a ride to Denver," and it was Tim Allen, but it was like way before. I mean, that's the other thing about being a comic. Like, I see people, and I'm like, God, that guy's really funny. Or I've seen people like, wow, why doesn't that person have their own show? But very rarely have I been like, oh, that guy's going to get a sitcom and, just knock it out of the park or get two sitcoms. I mean, that's a great pick because not only has he had Home Improvement, but like you say, Toy Story, and he had Last Man Standing, which ran for another 7 or 8 years. So that's a heck of a career for sure.
You're going into the attic mode, folks. Keep your accessories with you at all times, spare parts, batteries, anything you need for an orderly transition.
So this is a great list we have here. We have agreed on a few. So now it's time. Now it's the harder part. We have to now condense this list down to a final 5. Okay, so here's who we have. We have Alan Cayton-Holland, Sam Tallent, Kristen Schaal, Ben Crumbler, TJ Miller, Josh Blue, Roseanne, and Tim Allen. So we both agree with Sam Tallent and Josh Blue. So those two guys automatically get pushed to the top 5.
Okay.
So now it's between these top 3 we need. So who are you thinking? Who do you think we should push forward? I'm thinking that both of our number ones need to get pushed in.
That's Roseanne and Tim, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I would say that I'm willing to let Ben Kronberg go. I love Ben, but I mean, you know, Tim Allen and Roseanne, those are some pretty hard hitters. So Ben Kronberg, I would cross off my list. So right now we have Tim Allen, Roseanne, Josh.
Yeah, here's who made the list so far. We have Sam Tallent, Josh Blue, Tim Allen, and Roseanne. So we have 4. We need 1 more. Who's going to get cut? Is it going to be Adam Cayton-Holland? Is it going to be TJ Miller? I think it's between those 2 guys right now.
Yeah.
That's tough.
Yeah, it is tough.
I mean, TJ Miller is more of the household name, but Adam Cayton-Holland is more of the Denver guy. He's more doing more for the scene there. He's more, you know, even though TJ Miller did do the song "I Love Denver."
Yeah,
that makes it. I'm leaving this one to you because you're the expert here on the Denver scene.
Well, and you know, and I guess it just depends on what the criteria is. If you look at just from a standpoint of success in show business, I would give it to TJ Miller, only because, I mean, he has, you know, multiple film roles. I can't think of what the name of that. So he was in Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean, Adam has had a really successful career. He's got 4 or 5 albums out, did that TV show, and he's got a Comedy Central Presents. But I guess I would have to give it to TJ Miller, just from a standpoint of looking at his career and the way that he's done it. So I love Adam, but I'd give it to TJ Miller.
That sounds like a fair set. It's these aren't easy by any means, but you always look at the whoever didn't make our top 5 is still in our top 10.
Yeah, for sure. You know, and I mean, I'd put Adam, you know, 5.5. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
he's
for
right
sure.
there.
So here's our list right now, and you let me know if you're comfortable with the order, or we could even change around the order here. So we got at number 5 TJ Miller, at number 4 Sam Tallent, at number 3 Josh Blue, at number 2 Tim Allen, and the number 1 Denver comedian of all time is Roseanne Barr.
I'm comfortable with that. You know, I think the success that Roseanne had. I mean, Tim Allen. I almost said Tim Miller. Tim Allen has had, you know, maybe just as much success, if not more. But I think I would give it to Roseanne, number 1, because she's a woman and what she did for women in comedy, you know?
Right on. And I also think at the end of the day, I don't always use that quote, that line. But at the end, Roseanne, I think, is the legend. Is a legend and an icon more so than Tim Allen. I think Tim Allen is great, and he's also, just to a lot of degrees, an icon when you look at Buzz Lightyear and you look at the Toolman Taylor. But to compare to Roseanne is like an icon above most. I just think she's that extra little bit. So yeah, having her at number one makes perfect sense to me as well.
Yeah, I think that if you, even people who, God, I'm closing my eyes, I'm concentrating so hard. Even people that aren't into comedy, I think if you said or showed a picture of Roseanne and a picture of Tim Allen, more people would know Roseanne. No offense to Tim Allen, but
right, yeah, no, true.
I think that's why. Yeah.
Very cool. This is a great list.
Yeah, man, and boy, you surprised me with some names on that list. That was really good. I didn't think of T.J. Miller or Kristen Schaal, so that was really good.
Very cool, man. I'm did some research on there, and I knew I was going to be doing this with you, and I wanted to make you proud, man.
Yeah, that was awesome. That was really good, man. Like I say, put the gears turning in my head there. That was good.
This is a blast. So, John, tell everybody how they can find you and follow you and all that good stuff.
Okay. Yeah, and it's funny because I was Hippieman for like 20 years, and I finally went back to my real name, and I can tell a quick story about that. I opened for Norm Macdonald like 4 or 5 times at the Comedy Works, and one time he came back through and he goes, "Hey, I heard you change your name from Hippieman back to your real name." And I go, "Yeah, I did." He goes, "I don't know, man. That's a hell of a stage name." And I was like, "I hear you, Norm, but I gotta go, what's in my heart." And he was like, "I know, but that's a hell of a stage name." But I just decided to go back to my real name. But I still have the domain name, hippieman.com. So you can see there's a couple of Ferguson sets up there. And you can contact me there. And then I'm on social media at Hippie Comic on Facebook and Instagram. So you can find me there. And I post a lot of schedule stuff on Facebook too.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, John, Hippieman, Novosad, I appreciate you taking the time being part of this. This was awesome, man. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me. I really had a blast.
Well, there you have it, folks. That's the top 5 Denver comedians of all time what me and John Novosad came up with. Hope you enjoyed it. Please let us know your picks in the comments below. And until then, we'll see you next week.